So welcome everybody to episode 7 of When Tomorrow Comes. I'm joined as usual by Ashleigh. Ashleigh, how have we got to week 7 already?
I have no idea, Ian, but it's been fun.
Summer holidays in lockdown, in school holidays terms, that's how I like to look at it. And we've also got Clair, Cogar and Tutt from Iceni's Archaeology team. Hi guys.
Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you, Rob. Hi Claire.
Hello.
Claire, we can't see you. Say it again.
You can't hear me?
No, there we go.
Yeah.
Now, Claire, we're talking about archaeology. We're talking about archaeology in the again, I guess in the context of COVID-19. You've sent an email around today talking about the importance of keeping moving with archaeology, the importance of keeping it in the public's mind's eye, and it being relevant from an NPPF planning perspective. Do you want to say a bit more about that before we start asking questions?
Yeah, well, archaeology is an interesting discipline in that we straddle both planning and construction. Often people find it quite unusual when I refer to construction and that we're a niche contractor in that industry, but effectively we come in after consent and prior to developing a site. So often we are working with demolition and construction crews and in very close quarters, which obviously given the current situation is not something we can effectively do. We're having to think of new ways that we can deliver a high quality archaeological result safely. So our traditional methods of working have really come into question.
So, I mean, people, I'm sure most people would ask the question, how do you carry on? How do you do something as intrusive as archaeology if you can't have, lots of people on sites, if you're having to work in a different way? What has changed from what you were doing before to what you're now doing? What can you do about it?
Well, you have to be innovative and adaptive. Expecting to do things in exactly the same way and deliver the same result is not possible. Even with our desktop work, for example, site visits are very restricted at the moment and archive visits are very restricted. But what we are using is online tools and records to deliver something similar that still ticks all the boxes in terms of planning, but it has to be different. And as councils are working with planners in a slightly different way, things are never, it's business as unusual, things again. I find that quite exciting in terms of archaeology.
Rob, I'm going to interrupt because I think we've lost a bit of Claire's sound. But Rob,
yes.
Are we expecting to see robots running around sites with trowels doing the work for people? Can you give us some practical sort of thoughts on how it might change?
As for actual archaeology robots, I think that's quite a long way off. But in terms of technology on sites, well, we already use drones for aerial photography, like photogrammetry surveys where you can create 3D models from drone photography. That's already happening. We got 3D scanning, that sort of thing. I mean, when you think about a JCB, is that a robot? I guess there's a human brain controlling it. But as for actual archaeologists on site excavating sensitive archaeological remains, no, I don't think that's going to be replaced anytime soon by a machine.
Claire was saying in her note that it's important for archaeologists to keep the kind of the status, if you like, of archaeology within planning, within the NPPF. Are you worried about that, or is that just thinking ahead? What's sort of driving those thoughts? And I'll give Ashleigh a chance to think about this because I'm interested to get her thoughts after you've answered on how relevant that is to mainstream planning as well. So Rob, if you want to perhaps give us some thoughts first.
The status of archaeology, well, it's always a concern that it's in the future it might not feature in NPPF. Obviously, that's a presumption. Not that that's necessarily going to happen, but who knows? It's all about keeping archaeology relevant to the people that are interested in it. and it's an important resource in this country. And lots of people are interested in it. There's lots of different levels. You've got the public interest, you've got academic interest, and you've got the local cultural. If you think of a local community, there's that interest in the background of where they live.
Ashleigh,
So it is relevant.
Any thoughts, Ashleigh?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with what Rob's saying there. In that, I don't know. I obviously am not an expert in archaeology, but my perspective is that it's not going anywhere. It is the historical context of our built environments, and that needs to be the starting point for any development going forward. So, yes, we're moving into a world where maybe doing some of these archaeological digs might change, might be more challenging, but in terms of the importance that the work has to the future of our development, I think that it has to remain as a starting point. We cannot forget about the history that lies beneath the buildings that we're creating. So I think it remains really important. Coming back to something you said, Ian, about it remaining sort of important and prevalent in the public's eye. I remember when Claire first started at Iceni, she took a group of us to see some exhibitions from some archaeological digs that she'd been involved in. And it was one of the most interesting things that I've been taken to, and it just opened my eyes to the work that she does and the type of things that we are uncovering underneath the development. And I think that keeping up those type of exhibitions and that needs to be something that continues into the future as well, so that we can keep archaeology in the minds of people so that they know it's important and that we are respecting what's gone on before we then build development for the future.
Claire, are you back? Have you got sound again?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
It's the longest I've heard you silent for a while. Now, Claire, I wanted to ask you, because our heritage colleagues obviously talk a lot about the use of UCity for thinking about heritage above ground. Is there any opportunity to use tools like that for below ground?
Well, I think our current situation is onsetting a digital revolution, not just in archaeology, but across the board. And whilst UCity in its current format doesn't really relate to archaeology, I love the concept and the thinking and what it does. And it's a really useful tool to assist developers in designing a scheme that respects buildings of heritage value in the vicinity. And it brings it to life for the council and curators, which is what we aim to do in archaeology. But at the moment, we're producing these desktop studies that are much more word-based than picture-based, and I'd like to move towards creating digital models of both above and below ground basements and how they impact on archaeology, to really demonstrate to people visually how things are going to work, and hopefully that will make it a more efficient, effective process. And I also think a 3D model of basemented area and impact on archaeology would be really useful to developers, so they could design around any areas of concern and save large sums of money if required, and also preserve the archaeology.
Sounds like a tool to be talking to our futures team about then, Claire, but perhaps it's the next thing we need to be working on. Look, guys, thank you very much for your time. Claire, I know you need to run because you've got a meeting to get to. Thanks for all your thoughts, and look forward to seeing people next week for the next edition of When Tomorrow Comes. Thanks for your time today, guys.
Cheers, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.